I don't have any visual aids today, so I hope y'all can forgive me for that. Do have a lot of information. So as we covered last week, we completed the second round of in-reservoir treatment at North Fork. And as of early this morning, or we monitored those results over the weekend. And as of early this morning, turbidity had fallen below 19. That is very, very good progress. And, obviously this isn't working as quickly as everyone would like, but it does appear the second round of treatment was considerably more effective than the first round was. You can probably attribute that to the curtains. You can probably attribute that to more favorable weather conditions on day of application. Whatever you can attribute to, we're happy about it. Final decision has not been made, but it is very, very likely that we will conduct a third round of in-reservoir treatment beginning early next week. So that's the latest with the in-reservoir treatment process. Some good news is Water Resources now has a second option at its disposal for treating the turbid water at North Fork Reservoir. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is in the early stages of implementing an alternative treatment project that could possibly, and I want to stress, possibly be operational very late November, very early December. And that's based on information the Corps of Engineers has given us. I would like to stress again that timeline. This is a construction project, and so it will be susceptible to things that are out of our control, like weather, procurement schedules, and all of that. But we are very, very hopeful and optimistic that by early December, based on the information that we have right now, that system will be operational. And this is going to rely on what's called mobile treatment units. And those will be staged out at North Fork in a clearing above the dam. Exact number and precise layout is still being determined. The size of these things kind of varies. They're generally shaped like a shipping container, so they're rectangular in shape. Some of them are 30 feet long. Some of them are 50 to 60 feet long. So based on the size of these things, that will determine exactly how many will be set up out at North Fork. We will pursue this option concurrently with the in-reservoir treatment process. So we're absolutely not giving up on that, not by any means. And it's possible that the in-reservoir treatment process clears up the lake enough for us to start treating water on a very large scale before the Corps of Engineers system is even operational. The Corps of Engineers Alternative Treatment Project is designed to be effective within a relatively small footprint, like the one that's available at North Fork. There's not a lot of flat ground out at North Fork. It's very elevated. There are pretty significant elevation changes. Capacity would be engineered to reach approximately 25 million gallons of water per day. That's enough to keep the system pressurized and provide flushing capacity. And the flushing part of this is going to be very, very important. I've mentioned before, once we start pushing nothing but potable water into the system, we're going to have to completely replace the water in the tanks and our main transmission and auxiliary transmission lines. And that progress will take a couple of weeks. I think the latest timeline we have for that is 2.5 to 3 weeks. So even though we start pushing potable water, that does not mean that the boil water notice will be lifted immediately. We will have to, again, flush the system and perform some extensive back-end testing before we can lift that boil water notice. Now, the planning for the Corps of Engineer project, which I've mentioned, they've been working for several weeks now. The planning for that project began on October the 1st. When Water Resources first engaged the Corps of Engineers to pursue alternative treatment options for North Fork. So from planning to the early stages of execution, that process took about 30 days. Next steps, the Corps of Engineers is in the process of procuring materials, equipment, and personnel. Over the next couple of weeks, equipment, materials, and personnel will begin arriving at North Fork for construction and setup. Once construction and setup begins, the contract's terms will require the contractor who's going to do all this work to work for 24 hours a day until the system is operational. So we're trying our best to move this process along as quickly as possible. There are some regulatory requirements that come along with this. So coordination with EPA, North Carolina DEQ will be required. This system will be adjacent to forested areas. So a fire safety plan is going to be required from the contractor. There will be large volumes of sludge produced because of the extremely high turbidity of the water. So that could require trucking of excess sludge produced by this process. We can use existing sewage lagoons, or not sewage lagoons, sludge lagoons at North Fork. So we do have some capacity there, but it's very likely that our existing capacity will be exceeded and there will be some sludge that would have to be trucked off site. EPA will provide guidance throughout this, and the state DEQ will have to sign off on this before it becomes operational. So again, there's another variable that's completely out of our control, the regulatory part of it. I want to emphasize again, it is important to note that the in-reservoir treatment process could clear up the reservoir before the Corps of Engineers project is operational. However, to maximize redundancy, we are going to pursue the Corps of Engineers project regardless, and keeping that system in place until we have the upgraded filters that we've been seeking is a possibility that we're going to pursue. Whether or not we're able to do that is not totally up to us, but if we have our preference, we certainly will. One more note. I've talked to several people today and over the weekend who have asked why the water in their taps seems to be clearing up. There's a reason for that. Last Wednesday, North Fork started producing water through our existing filtration and treatment process at a reduced capacity. So normally North Fork pushes between 20 and 25 million gallons a day into the system. Right now, we're putting between 10 and 15 millions of gallons a day of treated water into the system. So if you've noticed your water clearing up, that's why. Now, it's also very important to note, and there seems like there's a caveat with everything that I say, that the continuation of that process is highly dependent on the North Fork Reservoir continuing to clear up. So we don't need like a windstorm. We don't need a thunderstorm. We don't need very heavy rainfall that could lead to some runoff and drive that turbidity number back up. But we have had some good things happen the past week or week and a half that we're very, very excited about. We still have a lot of work to do, a lot of ground to cover. So unfortunately, we cannot lift the boil water notice yet. We would love to, but we're just not to that point. That's it for me. I know you'll have some questions afterward, and I'm going to turn it over to Jess Foster.